cross-temporal connection secure. We're all green. Can you all hear me? Now, how did my introduction go back in the day? Yes. A primate after mutant all you know, I love prime. Well, with this appearance, I suppose it's more appropriate to simply refer to me as Zack. I can already tell all of you are surprised to see me grow so old in an instant. But rest assured, I aged gradually just as anyone else does. But I suppose an explanation is in order. Well, believe it or not, I'm from the future. From the year 2055 to be exact. So that would make me, let's see, 60 years old? Yes. The orphanage found me in 1995, so I just have to add 5 to the current year to get my age. That's certainly a convenient way to remember my age. But let me say this, chat. If you're past the point of remembering your own age, you're also past the point of caring. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering what I'm up to in the future. And before I say anything else, don't worry. Streaming to the past will not disrupt the timeline. Once the stream ends, you'll all forget about it. Like waking up from a dream, you'll try to remember, but the memories will fade in an instant. Now, just what is Zack up to in the next 30 years from your perspective? Well, I'll give you a rundown on what the Takanashi estate's been up to. There's a lot of ground to cover, but I'll make it as entertaining as I can. Following that, I can go more in depth with each of the individual members. Meredith, Ronald, Giselle, and my father, Shun Takanashi. Yes, I've accepted the old man as my father for a long time now. It feels weird calling him an old man when I myself am an old man now. I'll let you decide on the order, but I'll let you know right now I'll be covering Mr. Takanashi's second last, and I'll be covering myself last. I entrust what order I talk about the other 3 to you, chat. I owe everyone in the Takanashi estate a great deal. Without them, never mind me living a satisfying life in my old age. I wouldn't even be alive at this point if it weren't for them. So it's only fair that I remember and recount their deeds and accomplishments. So without further ado, let's begin talking about what's happened from 2023 to 2055. Now let's see, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. Just how far has 2023 me gone in terms of telling the lore? He's gotten to at least encountering one of the 3 Furies, right? No, dear, he still has a long way to go. He needs to pick up the slack. But the fact that I debuted as a VTuber back in 2021 is proof that I came out of the events of 2020 alive and well. I won't go too far into the details, but 2021 and beyond was a time for the city to rebuild itself after tremendous trials and tribulations. Naturally, the Takanashi estate pulled its weight in the city's reconstruction. Everyone came together to rebuild from the ashes. Thanks to everyone's efforts, the city stands as a testament to humanity's ability to not only rise from the disaster, but to flourish as well. Kamen Rider Ghost unfortunately did not have an anniversary special. The current Kamen Rider series, I believe, is Kamen Rider Twilight, which the entire gimmick is 2 different halves of the Kamen Riders learning to work together as one. But back on topic. Everyone in the Takanashi estate did not necessarily part ways per se, but instead turned their attention to their actual jobs before the events of 2020. Everyone was relieved now that they were allowed to breathe easy again. I suppose Kamen Rider Twilight is like Kamen Rider Double. The main difference is the two riders often clash and have different methods to the same goal, so that serves as the driving internal conflict. Whereas Shotaro and Philip get along quite well, Lumen and Umbra often butt heads. It's similar, but it's different from Revice. Revice, Iki, and Vice got along from the start. But these guys, they're bumping heads even up to halfway through the series. But back on topic. As for me, you all know the main reason I became a VTuber was to tell my story of how I became a hero in the first place and how I was able to get my life back together. I have no reservations in revealing to you all that my intention was to inspire others to action and to not give up hope in their darkest hours. It was thanks to that in my interactions with all of you that I found my calling as an author. But I couldn't abandon my hero duties, as difficult as it was. I juggled VTubing, writing, and working undercover to keep the city of Luminous safe. We needed to stay vigilant against any criminal forces that tried to take advantage of the city's vulnerable rebuilding state. And thanks to our vigilance, we managed to stop several criminal conspiracies because we caught wind of them early. We continued to safeguard our city, and thankfully without resorting to calling upon the heroes of the city. But we began hearing mysterious rumors of supernatural incidents across the country involving godlike powers. After some investigation, we found out the rumors were true. Certain individuals were using the power of gods, just like the enemies we faced back in 2020. They were causing havoc all over the country, and someone had to put a stop to it. And that someone was almost always me. But as time passed, the incidents increased in frequency. And try as I might, I can't be everywhere at once. Which is why Meredith and Ronald began developing a new hero suit system. Alright, Yusuke, what is your question? Don't be afraid. We still have some time left together. Anyways, like the original hero suit system, which we named the Luminous system, the new suits derive their power from the remains of mythical beasts. But unlike the Luminous system, there are far less stringent requirements for donning suits safely. Is Genshin Impact still alive? Unfortunately, yes. I feel unfortunate for new players who pulled Dane's leave and have to complete the entire game just to get his ascension materials. This has gotten out of hand. But anyways, the most notable thing about the new system is that the beasts won't try to kill you if they deem you unworthy of their power, which naturally is a big upside. Of course, this means the new suits have reduced power and capabilities. We named the new system the Mythic system, and it's been a great asset in recruiting new heroes. Ah yes, speaking of the new heroes, I'm not out of the hero business quite yet. I still have some time left before I decide to retire, but eventually I will have to step down. Until then, I've gone around looking for new mythical beast remains and the suitable people to use their powers. We have quite the roster for our new generation of heroes. We have a griffin, a basilisk, a unicorn, a Garuda, just to name a few. They still have room for improvement, but I can retire from the hero business with peace of mind once they finally come into their own. Let's look at the poll results. So you want to know how Giselle is doing? Well, her story is surprisingly straightforward. She continued her tenure as head maid of the Takanashi estate until the end of her contract. She had her reasons for becoming Mr. Takanashi's maid, but those reasons were resolved by the end of 2020, and so she continued being a maid of her own volition afterwards. Thanks to the money she made working as a maid, she helped her brother Felix get into medical school. In fact, Felix is my current physician monitoring my health. I just find it amusing that no matter what, a Leclerc is always looking after me. But back to Giselle. After her contract was complete, she was able to enjoy a peaceful retirement. Every now and then, when I'm back home in the city, I pay her a visit and enjoy some tea with her. Even in my old age, she likes to tease me by calling me young master, even though I'm 60 by now. So the next one is Ronald. Well, after the main conflict of 2020, he continued his work in robotics. He stayed in the field longer than Meredith did and made huge contributions to accessible and assistive technology for those who need it the most, namely the elderly. Plus, with the main conflict over, he was able to spend more time with his family. And since I babysat his son Andrew so often, he considered me an honorary member of his family. Speaking of Andrew, he grew up to follow in his dad's footsteps and enter the robotics field himself. He picked off where Ronald left off, while Ronald was able to retire. Ronald helps develop new hero suits with Meredith when the need arises, and we're carefully considering bringing Andrew into the fold. And to wrap things up, is Meredith. Well, after the main conflict ended, she also continued her works in robotics for only a short time, but in that short time she made great breakthroughs and new milestones in the field. Thanks to the patent she developed, she was able to retire early and devote her time fully to developing new hero suits with Ronald when the need arises. And during her downtime, she focused more on her personal hobbies, which I found out was writing BL. And her best-selling BL story features a man who looks and acts almost exactly like me. I only found out when it received a television adaptation. Meredith gave me a portion of the royalties as an apology. Only now can I look back at it with amusement, but at the time, I was pretty upset. Not the fact that I got turned into a BL protagonist. Simply it was because she didn't tell me beforehand. But that's in the past now. And now, it's time to talk about Shun Takanashi, the man I've accepted as my father. That man accomplished so much and did more good for the city and the world than I ever could. After the dust settled in 2020, he put all his effort into not only restoring the city, but making it even better than before. He poured every resource he had into helping everyone affected. He also used this chance to expand his solar energy company and made the city net zero in carbon emissions. He made that money back within a decade, but his actions were worth so much more than that. Is GTA 6 out? As a matter of fact, GTA 8 actually came out last year. Oh, don't worry, Nano. You won't even get the chance to tell the current me what happened. The moment I close stream, you will all forget about this. It's like waking up from a dream. You'll try to remember, but you won't be able to. Looking back, Mr. Takanashi truly was the man I looked up to. He was everything I wanted to be, and he had everything I wanted. He was a man who only spoke when needed, and instead let his actions do the talking. Kay, you don't need your driver. You have your power wheelchair with nitro boost, but we'll get to that later. Mr. Takanashi gave me room to breathe and sort things out for myself, and only stepped in when I was way in over my head. He had money, influence, the respect of everyone around him. Everything I never had growing up or in my early adulthood. Back then, after spending over a year with him, I thought to myself, to me, this man redefined what it meant to be a man. If I could become even half the man Mr. Takanashi is, then I could hold up my head high with pride. But back then, I was nowhere near that point, not even close. I thought I'd be spending the rest of my life trying to close the gap between us. Then, about 20 years later, something I never expected to happen did. Before that time, I was unaware, but back at the start of the monster incident near the tail end of 2019, when Mr. Takanashi first used the power of the Phoenix, he didn't have the hero suit he had when we first met. He had to resort to absorbing the Phoenix feather into his body to use its powers. As you might have guessed, that had serious side effects, including internal organ damage. Which is why he had to find someone to develop the suit quick. Which is where Meredith and Ronald came in. But he still had to defend the city while the suit was in development, so he was forced to keep using the Phoenix powers directly in the meantime. A combination of that initial damage and old age catching up to him resulted in his health beginning to deteriorate. Multiple organs struggled to stay functioning. It happened so fast, I barely had any time to process it all. Phoenix powers aside, I figured he was just too stubborn to die. But I was faced with the reality that Mr. Takanashi was not long for this world. He sensed his time was coming and took everyone on one final trip to Japan. We all took a cross-country tour, seeing the sights, enjoying the food, visiting his relatives. To everyone outside of the estate, it was one big retirement trip. But for us, we knew. We knew Mr. Takanashi wanted to face the end on his own terms. Then it happened. He took us to a secluded arena in his old hometown. With everyone else as witnesses, he wanted one last showdown with me, to pass the torch and cross over to the other side with no regrets. We all thought he had finally lost it, but then he pulled out the phoenix feather and held it to his chest. Suddenly, a blue flame emerged from the feather and engulfed him entirely. The flames faded, and I was face to face with a complete stranger. But the moment he opened his mouth, I knew it was Mr. Takanashi standing in front of me. Through the power of the phoenix, he managed to regain his youth and strength. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but I knew right away that if he had waited this long to do it, there had to be a reason for it. Mr. Takanashi instructed me to approach him. I did what he asked and he held the feather to my chest. The same blue flame enveloped me, but the strange thing was that it didn't burn at all. On the contrary, I felt rejuvenated, and when the flames dissipated, the others watching had the same reaction as before. Just like Mr. Takanashi, the hands of time turned back for me. And that, chat, is the explanation for why I look absurdly young for 60. But let's continue the story, shall we? So there we were. The old man and I standing face to face. Both returned to the prime of our lives. This was the only way we could have a serious fight, with no room to dispute the victor, and no excuses for the loser. But he told me that the price he paid for this miracle was his remaining time. He only had a few hours left to live instead of the 1 month that the doctors estimated. With no time to waste, we put on our belts and transformed. This would be the last time that Phoenix Majesty and Thunderbird Prime would square off. He threw everything he had at me without reservation. The combination of his newfound youth and his decades of experience was downright overwhelming. I fought back with everything I had. I knew anything less than that would result in my death. And I knew he was counting on me to win. He put everything on the line on this. And I'd be damned if I disappointed him at the most critical moment. The arena transformed into a symphonic storm of fire and lightning. Both of us pulled out all the stops, and the fight grew more intense by the second. I was standing on razor's edge. The smallest error would spell my doom. This fight demanded all my strength, concentration, and power of will. I had to win and prove to him that he was right to take me in all those decades ago. The fight reached its climax when the two of us clashed with our respective rider kicks. Mine barely hit him before his hit me by a fraction of a second. The resulting impact launched him back, his armor shattering in the process. I did it. I fulfilled Mr. Takanashi's wish. He struggled to get back up, but he managed to nevertheless. Mr. Takanashi shuffled over towards me, took my hand, and shook it firmly. And do you know what he said to me? He said to me, "You've lost 25 years of your life to abuse, cruelty, malice, and deception. I'm giving you those 25 years back." Even in his final moments, he was thinking of how to help me. But shortly after that, he collapsed into my arms and I couldn't feel his heartbeat anymore. He was gone. We held a funeral procession for him and had him cremated soon afterwards. His remains are at his family grave, and every year I return to pay my respects. Afterwards, everyone returned home, but I chose to take 2 years off to sort things out with myself. Besides, I figured the world wasn't ready for me to see me suddenly aged backwards by 2 decades. So there is that too. And now I guess it's time to talk about yours truly. Well, as Zack Hakurai, I'm now an accomplished author. I have been for quite some time now. Sometime after the late 2020s, something just clicked in me. I put more effort into writing, willing myself into making more time for my craft. It's like I regained my spark for writing, like I finally rediscovered the joy of writing and why I started in the first place. Did I ever have a final form? I won't spoil the surprise, but let's say yes. And leave it at that. You won't remember this anyways. But back to writing. I pumped out several manuscripts and every single one of them was rejected. But I kept trying. I kept trying something different. I kept changing up my strategy. And finally, I managed to get my first story published. It was a children's storybook called The Silver Bird. It sold 500,000 copies to this date. After that, I've managed to get more stories published. I've written for various genres and reading audiences, and I'm still writing to this day. I've reached the point where I can comfortably lift off my royalties, but I keep writing anyway because it's what I enjoy. And over the past few decades, I've been invited to various book signings, book readings, and even convention appearances. So that leads to me traveling a lot. But of course, like I mentioned earlier, there's another reason why I travel so much. Like I said, I haven't given up on being Thunderbird Prime. So in addition to making appearances and finding inspirations for new stories, I investigate those supernatural incidents, look for mythical beast remains to use in new hero suits, and find suitable candidates for the new suits. Nowadays, I take more of a mentor role, raising the new generation of heroes, but I'm still more than capable of stepping up as a hero if the need arises. I have a few more decades left in me thanks to my second lease on life. Speaking of which, after that trip to Japan, I announced a 2-year hiatus. The official reason was to get my physical health back in order. But you all know the real reason. It did serve as a justifiable excuse as to why I would return 2 years later, looking younger than before my hiatus. When people ask me how, I just tell them it was thanks to a miracle spa treatment that took 2 years to accomplish. Speaking of writing, I suppose I can retell the story of the Silver Bird. Even if it is a children's story, I'm sure you can all appreciate it. It is the first story I ever managed to get published after all, so gather round everyone. I shall read you my bestseller. The children's story titled The Silver Bird. Once upon a time, there lived a cherry farmer. One night, he heard a knock on his door. When he answered it, he found a hatched egg on his porch. In this egg was a small silver hatchling crying for help. The cherry farmer took him in, unsure of what to do with him. "I do not know how to care for a bird, nor do I care to learn," said the cherry farmer. "Perhaps one of the many birds that fly past the farm would take this little hatchling off my hands." He placed signs outside his home to let the birds passing by know of the silver bird and his shiny coat of feathers. The first to answer the cherry farmer was a pair of songbirds. "We will take the silver bird and turn him into a fine songbird." And so they took him back to their nests. But they quickly learned that he was no good at singing, and they were greatly upset. They forced him to sing better, but they were too cruel to him, and the silver bird collapsed, his feathers losing a bit of their shine. When the silver bird awoke, he found himself back at the cherry farm. The farmer told him that the songbirds returned him. "They said you were a bad child that never listened to a word they said." The silver bird denied the accusations, but the cherry farmer refused to listen. He was too focused on finding another bird family to take him in. A pair of eagles were the next to take in the silver bird. "Our son will love to have a little brother." But the brother eagle was a powerful and respected hunter, and he saw the silver bird as weak and exploitable. Brother eagle bullied and hurt the silver bird, but nobody believed him when he cried out about this. Distraught and cornered, the silver bird fought back against the brother eagle. He tore the brother eagle's wing, but brother eagle knocked him down a ravine, scarring the silver bird's right eye and dulling his feathers once more. Once again, the silver bird found himself back at the cherry farm. "You attacked your brother. What is wrong with you?" The silver bird defended himself, but the farmer was convinced he was a bad bird. But a family of peacocks already wanted to take him in. The sister peacock was very friendly to the silver bird and helped him make new friends. He was able to make friends with a friendly blue jay and some ravens, but the sister peacock began dictating every part of the silver bird's life. Fearing a repeat of what happened with the brother eagle, he confronted sister peacock and the two had a violent argument. Unable to reconcile their differences, the silver bird stormed off to join his blue jay friend. The next day, the rest of the flock had turned against the silver bird. The sister peacock told all the other birds that he attacked her and pecked her eyes out. All the other birds shunned the silver bird and demanded that he apologize. Only the blue jays and the ravens believed him, and he defended him from the rest of the flock. The peacocks were outraged and demanded the blue jays return the silver bird. The flock was torn between siding with the peacocks and allying with the blue jays. Just as tensions were about to get violent, the cherry farmer stepped in and took the silver bird away. As it turns out, a famous bird keeper wished to take in the silver bird. He was famous for giving the best care to his adopted birds, and those birds would go on to travel to exotic lands. The silver bird finally got the care he desperately needed thanks to the bird keeper. He was left alone often to fly around his new home while the bird keeper was away. One day, he found a loose floorboard near his birdcage and opened it up. Underneath it, he found a crumpled up paper with a message on it. It was from the previous bird that the bird keeper took in, and it revealed the horrible truth. The bird keeper wasn't a real bird keeper. He was actually a poacher of rare birds. He would find and adopt rare birds, fatten them up, and offer them up to his wealthy associates. The silver bird was terrified and started making preparations to escape. But the bird keeper caught wind of this and attempted to capture him before he could flee. He chased the silver bird around the house and into the darkness of the woods. The bird keeper was gaining, but the silver bird saw all the bear traps scattered around the woods. He led him on a chase and feigned exhaustion for the bird keeper to get overconfident and to fall into one of the many bear traps. The bird keeper screamed in agony, but that only attracted the wolves in the forest. the silver bird fled and left the bird keeper to his fate. The silver bird wandered through the cold snow, desperate for food and warmth. Eventually, he found a cave with stored food. With no other choice, he took it. But it turns out the food belonged to a den of thieving magpies. They caught the silver bird and were planning to eat him, but the leader stepped in to stop them and strike a deal with the silver bird. In exchange for food and shelter, the silver bird would assist the thieves in their stealing endeavors. With nowhere else to turn to, he accepts. He joins the band of thieves. His once shimmering coat of feathers begins to dull once more. With each successful heist, the silver bird becomes more bold and more brazen. He starts stealing from richer and richer targets. One day, he happens upon a trove of treasure. Unfortunately for him, that treasure belonged to the Condor King. The king's minions chase him down, and the silver bird runs back to the magpies. But they abandon him to the king's judgment. The silver bird flees into the wilderness with the king's minions in pursuit. He kept running away, but his pursuers always caught up to him. The silver bird was running out of places to hide, and he was losing hope fast. But then he started hearing rumors. Somewhere, there was a bird sanctuary where he could be safe from the Condor King. But the sanctuary had long been sealed within a wall of black fire. The silver bird found out where the sanctuary was and flew toward it in a hurry. The Condor King's minions caught wind of this plan and sought to stop him before he could reach the sanctuary. They chased him down and wounded his wings, but he was determined to escape. In one last desperate attempt, he dove straight into the black fire. His entire body was engulfed in flame, and the pain was unimaginable. But he continued to brave the flames nonetheless, and lost many of his feathers as a result. He eventually broke through to the other side and was now safe. Or so he thought. After passing through the wall of fire, shadowy monsters besieged the silver bird. When all hope seemed lost, red-hot fire consumed the monsters and reduced them to ash. The one who came to his rescue was a radiant firebird. But more monsters appeared and surrounded the two birds. It was then that something stirred within the silver bird. I don't want to die after coming this far. I want to live. That earnest wish manifested in his remaining feathers. They glowed bright and fired off lightning bolts, dispelling the monsters. When everything calmed down, the firebird approached the silver bird. You braved many hardships to make it here. I can teach you how to control your powers and give you a place to call home. In exchange, I ask that you help me protect this sanctuary from these monsters. Can I count on your help? The silver bird hesitated, but the firebird waited patiently for his answer. The silver bird accepted after considerable thought, and the firebird made good on his word. He helped him heal his feathers to their original shine, fed him well, and taught him how to use his lightning powers. And so the silver bird became known as the Thunderbird, guardian of the sanctuary, and vanquisher of monsters. And that's the end of the story. How did you all enjoy The Silver Bird? I made it as easy to understand as I could. It is meant for children, after all. Having said that, I'm sure many of you have already figured out what this story is actually about. If you know, you don't need to say it in chat. But I think it made it obvious enough for people who know me well enough. Thank you. I'm glad that you all like it. Oh, excuse me. It appears we have a guest ready to join us. Please wait a moment as I let our guest in. Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, our special guest has joined us for today.
Greetings, everyone. If you're wondering why I don't look any different, well, that should be self-evident, right?
Yes. Congo hasn't changed much these past 30 years. He truly is forever 40.
I mean, physically, you're older than me at this point.
Yes, but even though the hands of time has rewound once, they continue to move forward.
You might want to turn me up just a bit. Transmission might be a bit off from the future.
Alright. Let's turn it up just a bit.
I'd say 140, 150, 150. Why not? Just a treat.
As a treat. 150.
As a treat.
There we go. So, how is the Congo Ryu Dojo nowadays?
It's the same as always. Kondeshi come in and out, they travel across the world, whatever they want, honestly. I'm just here to teach people how to kill. Everything else is secondary. Well, killing is not the primary thing. I want a good mentality. But also how to kill.
Yes. Well, certainly, Cliff. I can turn down the BGM just a tad more.
Just a small amount.
But of course, Congo's not the only one I've been keeping in touch with these past 30 years. There's plenty of others. I've written it down because in my old age, it's hard to remember all the details.
Of course, it's easy to forget people. I mean, I've forgotten more people than you probably know. Not talking to you specifically, but the people here.
Alright. So, let's see here. Ah, yes. Jack Delane. Of course I'll talk about my brother. Well, with him being a demon, nothing's really changed with him physically. He's still down in hell, but the last I've heard from him, he's working with the devil to quell an uprising of an overflowing population. Plus, he has to
get a promotion.
Yes. He's second in command now.
That's impressive.
Yes. Plus, he has to deal with interference from the agents of heaven. We've agreed to stay out of each other's business for now. As long as the conflict doesn't spill into the human realm, I won't get involved. Besides, well, I should refrain from saying too much about myself.
Good. To be fair though, beating up angels does sound fun. Think about it.
It truly would be a test of your strength, now wouldn't it?
Well, it would be more annoying. They fly around. Flying enemies are always the worst.
Yes. But I suppose that's why Jack has such a fondness for guns, so he can just shoot them down.
Right.
Yes.
One of the greatest inventions of humankind.
It really is the great equalizer. Now, who's next?
Let's do.
Ah, yes, Cliff McConair. Another brother I'm always happy to talk about. He has long returned to the Highgate Kingdom, but still occasionally keeps in touch with his close friends. He settled down and found a wife. To the surprise of nobody, it was a beautiful elf woman. Even though he's retired, he still composes music to pass the time. He also likes to make up stories to tell his grandchildren as to how he received the scar on his eye. What was the current version of the story? Ah, yes. An assassination attempt while he was performing at a festival concert, and he continued performing anyway as a testament to his resilience.
I mean, I did attend his wedding. It was fun.
Yes, it was a grand occasion. I drank far too much than I really should have.
That's what it's like being human. How dare you drink? Perish for your foolishness.
I only perished momentarily, and thankfully...
Only for just a moment.
Thankfully, I did not make a complete fool of myself. It is Cliff's big day, after all. I wouldn't dare spoil that for him. But Congo, have you ever overindulged in something?
I mean, all the time. I'm a person of avarice. I will say that my tolerance for alcohol is significantly higher than a normal person's.
Yes, I do.
It's not even down to being an Oni, it's just to being me.
I do remember the Oni Goroshi event that you held all month long, all those years ago.
I mean, I held it quite a few times since then. Drinking with a different person every day for 30 days. It's a true test of your liver. I don't recommend most people try that.
It's certainly something only a man of your caliber could pull off.
It's more about density, but go on.
Ah, yes. Who's next? Speaking of siblings, Joey Ghost. They finally managed to achieve the impossible and turn their brain into an AI. Truly a breakthrough in the scientific community. And this achievement lined up perfectly with their 30th wedding anniversary with their wife Gosana. That was certainly a shocker to learn that he was married, and even more of a shocker to learn that he had 32 children. That left me completely flabbergasted. Their oldest son, Zana, will be saying the renewed vows as an internet-certified priest AI. As bizarre as it sounded at the time, I still agreed to attend the ceremony. I also learned that they have a Roomba dog named Rain and a Furby named Lucimin, 12 and 35 years old respectively. I wasn't even aware that Furbies could live that long.
They are eternal after all, same as me. But I will say this. If you turn your brain into an AI that's functionally a new you, not that it matters, the continuity is the same, but it wouldn't be the same person.
I imagine it would be like copying a file from one folder to another.
You have it. I think that's sort of interesting, not that it matters much again. As well, having 32 children significantly easier if you're an AI.
Yes, for me, I think I could handle 2 children at most. 32 would be quite a bit.
I mean, if they're staggered apart, it's not too bad.
Yes, with an AI, I believe you have time to stagger them apart.
As much as you want.
Yes. But continuing on. Yes. High-spec hamster choo-choo. They're still stationed at the Changer base and helping keep the world safe, as a good support robot should. But something I've noticed as the years gone by is that It's always 1980X for them. Before the incident, whenever I visited them, Choo-Choo would look puzzled and ask me why I was halfway to looking like Gia from Kamen Rider Kabuto. And they were understandably shocked when I showed up again looking like this. They thought I got stuck in 1980X along with them, but I assured them that wasn't the case. They still have a habit of appearing from my refrigerator and helping themselves to my alcohol.
I mean, you still look good. I would not peg you as 60 years old.
Thank you. We all know the real reason why, but the main excuse was... The public excuse I give is that I undertook a miracle spa treatment that took 2 years.
Ah, the Lazarus Pits, of course.
Yes.
Well done again, Ponce de Leon.
But yes, sometimes I do visit the rock quarry whenever I'm in Japan. I mean,
why not?
Yes.
That's where you can have a fight.
Yes, I did go on a pilgrimage to visit all the famous tokusatsu filming sites, like the warehouse,
Naturally.
the rock quarry, Omori Hill, the bamboo forest, the rocky underpass.
It's a shame that a lot of them are gone now.
Yes.
But let's not discuss that.
That's a story for another time. Speaking of Tokutubers, the next one,
Jeez.
Space Pirate K, the intergalactic himbo as he used to call himself back in the day. Back then, he was the scourge of outer space. Now, he's the scourge of a nursing home. You'd think that an old codger bound to a power chair wouldn't be that much of a menace, but you'd be mistaken. Whether it's breaking into the cafeteria pudding stash, hijacking the PA system to blast Yakuza music, or inviting his alien buddies for a rowdy party, he's a constant source of headaches for the nursing home staff. And they can't even catch him because he installed Nitro Boost onto his power chair. Where did he even get that? Must be one of his alien buddies. Anyway, I sometimes drop by to make sure his hijinks are still in the realm of harmless. But in reality, we just grab a few drinks and catch up on old times. We both know it'll never escalate to the point where we reenact the climactic fight of Metal Gear Solid 4. We're both too old for that nonsense.
Too old. You're never too old to have a brawl.
Yes, the last time I had a climactic fight on top of a tall structure was 2020. I've had other one-on-one duels, but not on tall structures.
Not on a building. Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
What a shame.
It gets extremely windy when you're at that high of an altitude. It's very easy.
Part of the fun.
Yes, it's very easy to lose your balance. That only forces you to focus on the fight even more.
I mean, if it's a matter of fighting on a high place, you get the instant win condition of knocking them off the side, which is always fun.
That is true. Of course, you yourself have to make sure that doesn't happen to yourself.
Absolutely. But if you do fall off the side, it's a skill issue. It's your fault.
You have no one to blame but yourself.
Right. Oh, I got tossed off a building. Well, first off, you were on top of a building. Second, you got tossed off. It's your fault. You messed up in 2 places.
Absolutely. Why did you even agree to fight on top of there? Who knows?
Right. Because it's sick, that's why.
It certainly adds to the dramatic flair. But,
Alright, go on.
moving on. Apollo likes bugs. Well, these things happen, you know? The passage of time is cruel, even more so for some of us. A life that burns twice as bright is bound to burn out just twice as fast. I cleared out my schedule when I heard the tragic news and booked a flight for the funeral. Poor Ophelia, she was devastated. But she managed to pull herself together to carry out the funeral processions. We decided it was best if we held it in Ophelia's backyard. We buried Apollo in a little shoebox under his favorite oak tree, where he still remains today. Rest in peace, Apollo. You were gone from us too soon.
Rest in peace, but everyone dies sometimes.
Yes. Surprisingly and thankfully, I've only had a few people I know pass away. We're not that far in, thankfully. Mainly everyone is still alive and well.
Which is wonderful. Can't ask for more.
Congo, how many of your associates are still alive? Hopefully all of them are.
Personally, I'm a hermit, so it doesn't really matter. If someone dies and I don't notice, they're just dead. They just vanish. In practice, someone disappearing from your life and dying are quite similar. People can just separate from you in path, like a blip, like a star in the sky.
And all you can do is accept it and move on.
It's not a matter of all you can do, just keep living.
Yes. Keep living for their sake. It's what they would have wanted.
As quoted, or rather as a quote by the famous singer, life goes on, anything goes, coming of O's.
Ah, yes.
But go on.
Speaking of Ophelia, she's not around anymore either. But relax, she's still alive. No cause for alarm. After Apollo's passing and settling all accounts, she simply decided that she was fed up with the concept of money in the human world. I doubt anyone can fault her for that. Before she departed, Ophelia told us that her time together with her friends and newfound family, however short it was the happiest in her life. Her last known whereabouts were back in her lake, preparing for another long nap. Everyone has respected her wishes and left her alone.
I'm glad that she's now enjoying the path of hermitage. It's my favorite, personally.
Speaking of long naps, do you manage to get 10 hours of sleep like you desired?
I mean, I'm always busy. I'm a man that wants 10 hours and only gets 8, so it goes.
Ah, yes, the eternal struggle.
I mean, if I want to go to sleep, I can just leave society for a while. I can just pass out in the middle of a forest or whatever, but to live in modern society requires bending the knee to modern rules. So it goes.
Thankfully, nowadays, it's easier for me to get my 8 hours of sleep as well, so I'm well rested in that regard.
I'm glad to hear it.
But, moving on.
Please.
Ah, Francie, the android. Someone who remains a friend to this day. He's changed a lot over these past few decades, but only physically. I'm sure you're all familiar with the ship of Theseus. That would be the most apt explanation for his current situation. Several of his body parts have been replaced over and over, but he's still the same Francie at his core. Of course, he's still a magnet for trouble. Many of those replaced parts were because he lost his original parts to various scams. I keep warning him, but he still keeps falling for them. But even after all that, he's still managing to keep running his business. He runs a mundane body model shop for fellow androids and others with armored suits. I myself sometimes drop by whenever I'm on the road and need a quick repair.
Alright then, quick question. The ship of Theseus. Do you still consider it to be a ship of Theseus, the same ship?
If it still identifies as the ship of Theseus, I will acknowledge it as the ship of Theseus, even if all of the original parts have been replaced. Because when you think about it, humans are very much the same way. The cells in your body right now are completely different from the cells 10 years ago. Technically speaking, you are technically a completely different person.
I mean, in practice you are.
Yes.
Well, mentally you are completely different from who you were 10 years ago for the most part. I'm not. I will say, though, that there is a more physical, objective answer to the ship of Theseus dilemma. Question, paradox, so on and so forth.
Let's hear it.
The new parts have undergone strain at the same time as the old parts. So there is a direct bond of camaraderie, of wear, of strain between the original and the newer one.
Yes. Fireforged camaraderie, as they say.
You have it.
Alright, next up.
Please.
Koi Nano. Theirs is a complicated situation.
Let's hear it.
They got themselves in trouble with a cleric from the Church of Graves. The cleric exorcised them and severed them from their dull body. Lucky for them, they managed to escape, but now they're just a sentient wind-up key, possessing a floating pen. So their archstreams managed to continue to this day, raising money to buy a new body. Other than that, it's more of the same from them. Like you, they don't age, so they're just carrying on with life, trying to get that new body. I chip in when I can.
I will say, though, the religious are annoyingly good at magic. If only they were worse. Annoying.
Curse that divine power.
First divine power, and also we can't talk about King Oja.
Yes.
Watch it for yourself. There's nothing worse than spoiling an episode of Tokusatsu before it's released.
Absolutely. It's something that truly needs to be experienced.
I will say, though, Captain Marvelous looks great in this year 2050 plus.
How does he do it? We'll never know.
He looks exactly the same. Is he immortal? He still looks the same age as he was before.
It's amazing. I feel like the Japanese truly did find the Fountain of Youth somewhere, and they're keeping it a secret.
Incredible. To be fair, he is technically an alien, but you know what I mean.
Yes. Ah, yes. Moving on. Ah, yes. Bahamut Blue. Or should I say, the first Bahamut Blue. Yes, you heard that right. Blue, as you all know him currently, has, at this point, retired from the hero business. He's enjoying retired life with his family. In fact, he recently became a grandpa. The little scamp looks like a baby version of Blue back in the day, and Blue showers him with affection. Now, I know you're all fixated on what I said before about the first Bahamut Blue. Blue understood that the world will always need heroes. He wanted to pass on the mantle to someone who could live up to the name. He asked me to help, and after a rigorous selection process, we chose the second Bahamut Blue. He's a good kid. A bit gloomy at times, but his heroism shines through in spite of that.
Legacy titles are always sort of fun. Very Blue Beetle.
Yes. And I'm watching over the kid. He's holding up pretty well. Like I said, he has his moments of gloominess, but he snaps out of it eventually.
I mean, so it goes. When you're a young hero, you have trouble with things.
Yes, I certainly did have my troubles starting out, which is always important to have a mentor offering a guiding hand if you happen to stray from the path.
The thing is, when you're a hero, you're fighting against the weight of the world, against morality. It's hard to distance yourself from what you're doing. You always want to be in the right. It's not just a matter of doing the right thing. You want to be praised, you want to be applauded. And when you're not, it feels dreadful. Not that I've ever been a hero.
It certainly is a sinking feeling when you don't get that praise, but you soldier on nonetheless, because you keep telling yourself that it's the right thing to do.
Just keep going down the line.
Speaking of heroes, next up is Red Memoriza. It's always a pleasure to talk about him. He's still active to this day, traveling across the Americas in his 80s Volkswagen bus. He protects and helps the people he meets from what he himself describes as low-stakes mundane dangers. Sometimes I run into him in my travels and help out, especially when his bus breaks down or he needs gas because he bought too much Plamo. And when the job is done, he takes his chance to promote tokusatsu, plamo, and heroism whenever the local news interviews him. He never did achieve his dream of becoming a world-class hero, but being a hero for the little guy is enough for him. And you know what? He's right. I'm proud of the work he does, and it's good to know that he's proud of it too.
I will say, though, incredibly stubborn, still using a gasoline-powered vehicle in 2050.
He says it's for the aesthetic, and I tell him there's better options nowadays, but...
The car's a piece of garbage! The cars drive themselves these days! Thunderbird Prime.
Yes, they truly do. Like, whenever I go on bus or train rides, it's all fully automated. You don't have to worry about a damn thing.
You can take a nap in your cars. It'll wake you up when you get there.
Yes.
An 80s Volkswagen won't do that for you. In fact, they don't even make parts for it anymore. You have to fabricate the parts to replace. It's ridiculous.
Which is exactly why he's running out of money all the time, besides buying all the plamo.
It's just a giant plamo, basically.
Yes. At this point, it really is a giant plamo, which is why he's so fond of it.
You can never give up on it, which I appreciate. Go on.
People do still work for money. I mean, I make my money as a writer. I get paid in royalties. I just keep doing it because I love writing.
It depends by country who's Kikiwami orange. It's not quite post-scarcity yet, but we're getting there.
Ah yes, moving on. Speaking of money, next one, Heki Devi. As you might expect, both their appearance and personality hasn't changed much over the past 3 decades.
As you'd expect.
Their mastery over anime music quiz has only become stronger over the years. In fact, AMQ has become an immensely popular esport starting around the mid-2030s. Naturally, Devi took to it like a fish to water, with their immense experience, and is now the reigning champion. And
impressive.
At the start of 2050, it's now played while riding on motorcycles. Some of Devi's tricks that they pull off while competing are truly a sight to behold.
I mean, with almost, at this point, a century of anime music, to be good at anime music quiz is ridiculous.
You have to keep up with all the current seasons airing during each season, and it's like you have to practice every day, every week, every month.
Truly the most intense esport.
I truly applaud his dedication to it. The grind is, as they say, real.
It is, Ekidevi. Next person, then.
Speaking of esports, the next one is Brandon Loveless. It's unfortunate what happened to him. Back in 2030, he made it to the StarCraft 2 World Finals. Yes, StarCraft 2 was still being played at that time.
I mean, yes, in Korea.
Yes, which is where he traveled to play. But back on topic, he made it to the finals, but his opponent cannon rushed him so hard in the winning game that the rage and emotional damage caused his cyberbrain to overheat, which resulted in Brandon falling into a coma. He remains in hospital care to this day. I pay a visit to him once every year on the day of the incident. We're holding out for him to wake up one day.
So yes, One Piece is done. I'm not going to comment on spin-offs, but it's done.
There are far too many spin-offs. I've lost track of how many there are.
Let's not talk about spin-offs, but One Piece is done, I'll say that much. There you are.
Congo, have you ever suffered a defeat that has caused so much mental damage to you before?
I mean, I got defeated so hard I was sealed underwater for 1,000 years. So, you know, maybe, perhaps, once.
And never again, I would
And
assume.
never again. I don't lose that often. I'm a winning man.
He stays winning even after 3 decades.
I'm always winning.
And he will always keep winning.
Have it.
But moving on. Ah, yes. Madame Gaeta, the indelible boss of the Cayman Army. Well, former boss of the Cayman Army. Relax, nothing bad happened to her. She simply chose to retire from villainy. The Cayman Army was distraught to see her leave, but she ordered them to send her off with a smile on their faces. How do I know that? Well, I may have infiltrated their ranks once I heard the Cayman Army was planning something, and it turns out they were just planning a farewell party. Anyway, Gaeta turned her attention to her maid's side business and managed to transform it into a powerful worldwide franchise. There's even one in my home city, and every now and then I pay a visit. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to find her there, and we catch up on old times.
I mean, you know they let you infiltrate, right? Because an alligator hat's not a very good disguise. They let you be there. They could have killed you if they wanted to.
They really could have. Like, I was vastly outnumbered. I guess they just wanted to play along because it was Gaeta's big day and they didn't want to ruin it.
Right, if you're not going to cause any trouble, they won't.
Yes. Plus, it was important to see Gaeta off on her farewell retirement.
Absolutely. You have to respect the people you fight, if only somewhat, but you won't.
Yes. If only somewhat. Next up, SF Tengu. Nowadays, they're working as a salaryman, living an honest life. They're still active online, make no mistake. Just like how I used to back in the day, they still manage to strike a healthy balance between work and streaming. They're still doing a great job showcasing advancements in VR technology. Their love for Jollibee is as strong as ever.
There's only one thing I care about in Jollibee, and that's the peach mango pie. Everything else is decent at best. I will say that regarding VR technology, everyone's a VTuber in the future.
Absolutely dreadful.
Terrible, honestly. The state of the world has never been worse.
I mean, with how easy it is with VR technology, why wouldn't they? But still, my condolences for all future VTubers.
The thing is, you enter a booth, it scans you, you have a VR model instantly.
Yes, there's no effort.
It costs nothing.
There's no effort. The imagination, it really has gone down the drain. It feels so
ridiculous.
Cookie cutter at this point.
But I do appreciate widespread accessibility.
Yes.
So it goes. You know, the metaverse never really took off. Mark Zuckerberg invested all that money only for wait a moment to go out to the pardon. I forgot. Can't discuss that, go on.
Alright, moving on. Ah yes, King Kuma. That's a name I haven't heard in quite a while. In fact, nobody else has for that matter. One day, Kuma just up and disappeared, and the rumors started flying shortly afterwards. Some say he's on the lam from a hustle gone wrong, and he escaped to the Cayman Islands where he's now an investment banker. Others say he quietly retired to run a small restaurant, one that may or may not have shady dealings from time to time. Only a handful of people know the truth, and I intend to keep it that way.
Let people be off the grid. It's harder than ever these days.
It's very hard to get off the grid, but a lot of people I know manage to do so.
I mean, a lot of them do it by leaving Earth. They just go into space. Bye. I'll see you another time.
Yep, just hop on the next rocket and leave forever.
I mean, to be fair, the lunar colony is quite nice this time of year.
Ah yes, sometimes I can see it in the sky at night, and It's quite a breathtaking sight, I will admit that.
But do go on.
Moving on. Ah, yes. Echo Whitefill. Not many people know this, but he was actually one of several clones to enable in tool-assisted telepathy. The Echo we knew was unique in that he was entrusted with recruiting people into a cult and brainwash everyone to enable TAT. Well, that plan fell through. The clones are gone, and so is the production facility. But since we've only learned about their existence recently, it's all rumors, and I'm working on verifying it. Rumors also say that Echo has disappeared from the public eye, but the cult is still there. Without the corporation backing them anymore, they live as they are, this human hive mind hiding in plain sight. I've yet to find them, but only when I do can I determine the next step.
I suppose killing them all is not an option. It's a shame it isn't. Would be easier that way.
Congo.
It turns out genocide's not good on your record. Yes, I understand. Don't worry.
That's not what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, what are your thoughts of, like, the concept of a human hive mind?
I mean, more power to them. If some people want to be part of a greater whole to complete themselves, by all means. For me, though, my mind is empty most of the time. It genuinely is. So if you had a human hive mind with me, you would hear crickets. It would be great.
I simply would not want to be part of it, for the sole reason of I like my privacy.
Absolutely.
But moving on.
Please.
Yes. Elliot Ambers. By now, he's worked long enough to be able to comfortably retire. To the very end, the back-and-forth torment between him and his students raged on. Actually, it still rages on to this day, as he still works as a substitute teacher while collecting his retirement checks.
I mean, everyone needs a hobby.
Yes, it's kind of similar to my situation. I could retire, but I keep writing simply because I want to.
As long as you're having fun, you may as well keep doing something. This way, still kill people. It's enjoyable to fight them, not to kill them.
Yes.
I want to clarify. It's more challenging than ever these days to assassinate someone because of the advent of the network, because of the advent of easy technology, because of the advent of this and that. But that makes pulling it off much more fun.
I imagine having all those things working against you makes the success even more satisfying.
It's more enjoyable, absolutely.
Yes. The fun of it all is also why I imagine Elliot is still working as a substitute teacher. That is the only explanation I can think of.
I mean, that or his pension's not enough.
But moving on.
Go on.
Garo Nebula. Around the 2040s, he became a hermit and departed from our world. He retreated to the far reaches of space and is now living on a remote mountainous planet. Due to his sheer size, you can manage to faintly see him in the night sky if you try hard enough. All you need to do is find a faint spot that's green and black. Sometimes I spot him in the night sky when I'm traveling, and seeing him helps me to de-stress and reorient myself.
Told you though, space is the new Florida.
Yes.
People are just moving into space to be alone these days.
Yes, but that also...
I mean, you can just purchase a space station for such a cheap price at this point.
Yes. Of course, that leads to all the news articles like Spaceman hitchhiking on a comet, or some ridiculous headline like that. Spaceman is the new Florida man.
I mean, eventually the Mars restoration, the Mars terraforming project will be finished. Not quite yet, but I have high hopes for that.
I certainly have high hopes for that as well. We've been talking about it for decades, and it's nice to see it actually being put into motion now.
We'll get there eventually. Probably in another 100 years, I'll be honest. It takes quite a while to terraform Mars.
Maybe with the right diet and exercise, I'll live to see at least the halfway point of that.
I mean, I'll be around, so that's what matters to me.
Yes, moving on. Noriboshi Ariel, the legendary Cantomancer. At this point in time, she has earned the right to be referred to as legendary. She may look like a granny now, and she may have failed 69 VTuber agency auditions, but that hasn't slowed her down in the slightest. To this date, she's released a total of 15 albums and a single rap mixtape. As a matter of fact, I listened to her albums on long bus, train, or plane rides. In my opinion, she doesn't need agency backing. She's become a legend in her own right.
She's admitted to failing 69 VTuber auditions.
Yes.
There's definitely more than that.
69 that we know of so far.
69 we're aware of that she's willing to say.
Yes. But I suppose there's a much more obvious reason why she picked 69 specifically.
Nice.
Precisely.
Next person, though.
Yes. Dr. Swoos, the science scientist, the dimensional doctor, the madman with no plan. Much like Joey Ghost, he uploaded his brain into a mechanical body to further his testing capabilities and longevity. His assistant nurse settled down and started a family. Nurse worries sometimes, but not for Dr. Swoos. It seems that some of her kids enjoy hanging out with the strange science uncle. Nurse herself owns her own successful clinic and gets a steady stream of patients, even to this day.
Even in the year 2050, healthcare's still a mess.
It still is, and people were hesitant to visit Nurse's clinic, well, with her appearance, but her capabilities shined through and overcame those initial prejudices.
I mean, with cheap enough payments, any prejudice can be overcome.
Indeed. But with that said, Nurse is a very capable physician.
Absolutely.
Moving on.
Please.
Stray. Hers is a bittersweet situation. Many of you may not have known this, but she was stuck in a time loop for a long time. It was a decade ago that she finally managed to break free from the time loop. She was so ecstatic to finally be able to live out her life, but she went overboard in that regard. She overindulged in her favorite hamburgers, but now without the time loop resetting her weight, she put on an immense amount of weight in a short amount of time, to the point where she can't even get out of her house now. But she's taking steps to rectify that, and I hope she succeeds.
I mean, to get big enough to not be able to leave your house, that's a impressive feat. Not just anyone can accomplish that. I couldn't.
I feel like I've asked a similar question before, but what was the most you've ever eaten in a single sitting?
Well, there are a few. I'd say the most difficulty I've had was eating a 2-kilogram burrito in about 20 minutes. Give or take.
May I ask what was inside the burrito?
It was just a steak burrito, straightforward enough.
Ah, yes, I see.
But it took 3 tortillas being overlaid with each other to be closed up, to look like a proper burrito. Terrifying thing, honestly, the size of a baby.
Well, that certainly puts things in perspective.
It does.
I myself, I think... Actually, in 2023, as a matter of fact, I believe it was in January. I forgot the reason why, but I ate 40 pieces of nigiri sushi in one sitting.
Impressive.
I felt immensely sick afterwards, but thankfully I did not vomit.
So my record for nigiri, right? Oh, nigiri, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Is 124 pieces of tuna nigiri.
That is quite the impressive number.
You might see the order of magnitude difference between our orders there.
Yes, 3 times as much.
3 times the passion of ordinary nigiri.
Yes. But moving on. Since we are talking about One Piece, this feels appropriate.
Alright.
Zwei Kanye. He disappeared shortly after 2030, and nobody heard from him for decades. Then, last year, he suddenly returned. You're not going to believe this, but he managed to find the One Piece. The One Piece...
They found the One Piece. Incredible.
The One Piece is real indeed.
And we get much higher, so high. Oh.
He no longer has money woes thanks to that. He moved out into a nice little cottage in the forest, where he spends his time learning how to play the guitar. He's become significantly better at it compared to the 2020s.
I'd imagine.
Yes, with unlimited time and freedom and not worrying about money, you can focus solely on your passions, and you will make leaps and bounds in that regard.
Absolutely. Though I do prefer a work-life balance myself.
Indeed, that's why I'm still writing as well. And
you have to make trouble for yourself, or you won't have anything to overcome. You won't.
Yes. And so we've reached the final entry. Mari, princess, excuse me. Now, queen of the Pastel Kingdom.
Impressive.
It was only natural that a princess of her caliber would ascend the throne.
Of course.
I cleared my schedule to attend her coronation, and what a lively ceremony it was. True to the name, the kingdom was pastel colors everywhere. When she's not fulfilling her queenly duties, Mari spends her time gardening, baking, and playing video games. I suppose in that regard, she's still the same Mari that helped me gain my footing when I first started as a VTuber.
Which was incredibly nice.
Yes. It's important to remember who helped you when you were starting out. Yes. I hope everyone listening appreciates the bonds they've forged over the years and makes an effort to keep in touch with those they've lost touch with.
And if you don't know about Bones, please watch Avataro Sentai Dawn Brothers.
It truly was a masterclass. Truly nothing else can compare to
There's
it.
still no Sentai like Avataro Sentai Dawn Brothers in the year 2050. Nothing's even close.
Nothing. Inoue truly was ahead of his time.
Ah, God rest his soul.
But looks like the connection is starting to destabilize. Congo, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me.
It's been a pleasure, Thunderbird Prime.
And so with that, the stream will end. And once it ends, everyone in chat will forget about this. As they should.
Hopefully. As long as the memory wiping works.
Yes. But with that, farewell, and remember to stay prime.
Till next time, farewell.